Well, I was a real estate broker and developer, and the market went really bad in the 80s. That motivated me to do something. The federal government and others made it so that we had 16% mortgage money, 22.5% prime rate. It was a bad time, and I started complaining about it, and somebody challenged me, well, why don't you run for office if you think you can do better? My response was I couldn't do any worse than these guys. And so that's how I got into politics. But I was really upset. I was angry about what was taking place. My business was failing, not because of lack of effort on my part, but because of the conditions that had been set up economically by the government. I think it's very important that we, the people, engage at all levels. Not everybody maybe wants to or are suited to run for office. It's not for the faint of heart nor the thin of skin, but they can support somebody else. They can carry signs. They can go to town hall meetings. They can go out and encourage other people to run. They can donate money. There's a lot of ways you can serve, but if we don't have the public engaged, we're not going to get the best and brightest people running for office. We're losing the young people. They're turned off by politics. What they see is never-ending backbiting, arguing, fighting, divisiveness. And so for them, they're saying there must be something better for me to do with my life. But they are the rising generation, and we need to get them engaged. The problems we're going to pass on to them, they can maybe head off now and improve and make better. But if they're not engaged, they can't. So I'm encouraged to see some of our young people more and more saying, let me find out what's going on. Let me get involved. Let me help with the campaign. Let me understand. Maybe someday I'll run for office. I hope that's the case, because if we don't have the rising generation do the right thing, we're going to have troubles in the future, and that's not going to be good for America. My advice to the young people is to get involved and understand what's taking place. Understand the good, bad, and the ugly of politics and public service and those who serve for us. Again, we the people are in charge. We sometimes forget that, like, my vote doesn't count, it doesn't matter. It's already preordained who's going to win or who's not going to win, which is not true. But you don't know that unless you really get involved and see what's going on behind the scenes and make a contribution. So I would encourage all of our young people, if you want to make a difference, get involved. And you will make a difference. One person can make a big difference over time. And the more you get involved, the more you can have an impact on the outcomes. You know, the executive branch is supposed to get things done. That's why it's called the executive branch. We have to go execute. Legislature creates policy and law. We have to go and execute and do what they tell us to do based on the law. And governors are the best at that of any executive branch. Certainly we get more done per state, per capita, than what we see coming out of Washington, D.C., which is good at doing two things. One, nothing, and two, kick the can down the road for another day, particularly on the tough issues. So the executive branch really does need to go out and do something. I think Congress and the legislative branch has certainly a role to play in concert with the executive branch. There ought to be communication. There's kind of a friendly tug of war. It should be at least friendly. Sometimes it's passionate, but you don't get things done unless you execute. And governors are good at executing. The best leaders we have in this country in politics, bar none, top to bottom, are the governors of the 50 states and the 5 territories. Well, most of us as governors belong to different organizations, whether it be the National Governors Association, which I chaired. We have our own more partisan, like the Republican Governors Association or the Democrat Governors Association. But the Western Governors Association is unique above them all, and the spirit of collaboration and cooperation is in great abundance. Some of it's because we have a lot of the same issues that bring us together. A lot of public lands, energy development, mineral extraction, tourism and travel. Our national parks are out here, more in the West than any part of the country. So that brings us together for a common cause, common issues that we kind of share advice and counsel, and then work with the federal government to see if we can in fact change policy and get things better. The Western Governors Association has been very good at working with the sitting president and their cabinet members. Every time we'd go to Washington, D.C., we'd have meetings on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. for 2.5 hours and have always usually 4 or 5 cabinet members talking to the Western governors. And that's the impact we have, and I think people trust us. We're not radical. We're I think, common sense people to work out policy. And so we've had great access to the president and his cabinet members as Western governors, better than any other organization, at least that I belong to. Well, I think our system for electing president has its own challenges, and consequently it probably is more biased towards electing somebody from the East than it is from the West. Ronald Reagan, maybe our most recent Western governor that we remember. California had more to say back at those times. Right now we go to Iowa first, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, and for many campaigns, the time you get through those 4, maybe 5 or 6 states, it's already decided. California didn't come into play. Neither did Utah or the other Intermountain Western states. California's moved their election, now the primary election, up to an earlier date to see if they can't have some impact. I think our system to nominate our presidents probably needs a good hard look and maybe a revamp, maybe a new way of looking at things. And if that happens, I think the West can again become more prominent. Certainly as we get more at the front of the election cycle, we're going to have more to say, and one of our favorite sons will have a chance, or daughters, to get elected or get the nomination.